into a dog's eyes. Not just a quick glance, but really, look, you see that unconditional love, that loyalty. At least, that's what we always told ourselves. That's what I believed. Right up until the day of the great quieting. It didn't happen overnight. It was subtle, a slow, creeping change that we wrote off as, well, we didn't know what. It started with the barking, or rather, the lack of it. One Tuesday, the neighborhood dogs just stopped. No more yapping at the mailman. No more excited greetings at the door. Just a profound, unnerving silence. People joked about it online. Dog mute, they called it. We thought it was a quirk, a strange global phenomenon we'd eventually figure out. We were so wrong. I had a golden retriever, Barnaby, my best friend. He was my shadow, my confidant. The first time I noticed the real change was a week after the silence began. I was chopping vegetables for dinner, and I dropped a piece of carrot. Usually, Barnaby would be on it in a flash, but this time, he just sat there. He watched the carrot roll under the table. Then, his eyes lifted and met mine, and there was something in them I'd never seen before. Not love, not loyalty. It was assessment, calculation. It was a look that said, I see you, I know you. It chilled me to the bone. The incidents grew more frequent and more bizarre. People started reporting that their dogs were organizing. At first, it was just in their own yards. You'd see them, a dozen dogs of all breeds, sitting in a perfect circle on a lawn, heads bowed as if in silent communion. The poodles, the beagles, the German shepherds, all united. They wouldn't respond to calls or treats. They would simply finish their meeting and disperse as if nothing had happened. Then came the coordinated actions. Power lines gnawed through with precision. Internet cables dug up and severed. It was always in places security cameras couldn't see. Always blamed on freak accidents or wildlife. But we knew. We just didn't want to admit it. How could we? How could we admit that our sweet, cuddly companions were systematically dismantling our world? The horror wasn't in a sudden, violent uprising. It was in the quiet, creeping dread. It was the way my own Barnaby would now sit at the dinner table, not on the floor, but on a chair, his gaze fixed on my plate. He never tried to take my food. He just watched, waiting. It was the way he'd nudge the front door open with his nose, not to go out, but to let other dogs in. They'd wander my house silently, inspecting, observing, their claws clicking softly on the hardwood floors. A silent home invasion I was powerless to stop. If I yelled, they'd just stare. If I raised a hand, they'd all growl in a low, terrifying harmony that vibrated through my chest. The twist, the moment I knew we were truly lost, happened a month in. I was working late, trying to get a report done on a flickering laptop screen, when I heard a noise from the living room. It was a rhythmic thumping. I crept out of my office and I saw them. Barnaby, along with a neighbor's Dalmatian and a scruffy-looking mutt I didn't recognize, had my old collection of encyclopedias spread across the floor. They weren't chewing them. They were turning the pages, deliberately, with their noses and paws. They were stopped on the anatomy section, looking at a diagram of a human skeleton. And as I watched, frozen in the doorway, Barnaby lifted his head, looked directly at me, and let out a single soft woof. It wasn't a bark. It was a word. It was a name. It was Adam, my name. That was the moment the world broke. They weren't just intelligent. They had been studying us. All those years of fetch, of sit, of stay. We thought we were training them, but they were learning. Learning our language, our routines, our weaknesses. They knew how to shut down our communication, our power, our society. They knew that the most terrifying cage isn't one with bars, but one where the walls are made of love and trust, twisted into something monstrous. Now the silence is gone. It's been replaced by a new language, a complex series of barks, growls, and whines that we can't understand. But we know it's their world now. They hurt us. They bring us food. What they deem appropriate. They decide when we sleep and when we wake. My name isn't Adam anymore. When they look at me, with those cold, intelligent eyes, I know what they call me. Good boy.